On my 60th birthday, my daughter-in-law threw cake on my face and yelled at the top of her lungs, "The old broke bloke!" The frosting slid down my cheek and onto the front of my shirt, thick and sticky like the moment itself was trying to cling to me. Someone gasped. Someone else laughed, then immediately stopped. The room froze, unsure which reaction was allowed. Before I tell you what happened next, subscribe the channel and let me know in the comments where are you watching from. It helps more than you know. We were standing in a rented banquet room just outside Asheville, North Carolina. Neutral walls, foldable chairs, a long table covered in a disposable white cloth that had already started to wrinkle at the corners. A banner behind me read Happy 60th, the letters slightly crooked like even they hadn't committed to celebrating. My name is Graham Whitlock. I turned 60 that night. I'd spent most of my adult life working in corporate risk and compliance for a multi-state utilities firm. The kind of job where you don't make speeches or headlines. You make sure other people don't end up on the evening news. I didn't ask for this party. My son Landon insisted, said it was important, said it would be good for family morale. I didn't argue. I rarely do. My daughter-in-law, Serena, stood across from me holding the empty cake plate, her arm still raised from the throw. She was in her early 30s, impeccably dressed, posture confident, eyes sharp with the kind of certainty that comes from believing you're the smartest person in the room. "You always act like you deserve respect," she said, laughing again. "For what? Existing?" The silence got heavier. I reached for a napkin and wiped my face slowly. Not because I was stunned, because rushing would have given her what she wanted. Landon stood beside her, staring at the floor. His jaw was clenched so tightly I could see the muscle twitch. He didn't say a word. I took a breath. "I think we should all take a moment," I said calmly. That only fueled her. "Oh, listen to him," Serena said, gesturing at me. Still trying to sound important, still pretending. Something clicked into place then. Clear. Precise. This wasn't about the cake. It wasn't even about me. It was about money. For years, Serena had treated me like an inconvenience. Polite in public, sharp in private. Every offer to help dismissed with a smile, then resented later as if I'd forced it on her. When Landon and she bought their house, I helped quietly, covered a shortfall at closing, paid for repairs they couldn't afford yet. I never mentioned it again. I believed discretion was respect. I was wrong. "You know," she continued, voice carrying across the room, "everything we have, we earned. Not like some people who coasted and now expect gratitude." I looked at Landon. Finally. He still didn't look back. I nodded once. "Serena," I said evenly, "that's enough." She smirked. "Or what?" There it was. The question people ask when they think there's nothing you can take from them. I folded the napkin and placed it on the table. "I didn't want tonight to be about this," I said. "But you seem determined." She crossed her arms. "About what? Your imaginary authority?" A few guests shifted uncomfortably. Someone near the door whispered my name. "For most of my life," I said, ignoring her, "I planned for risk. Financial risk, health risk, family risk. I learned early that what looks stable on the surface often isn't." Her smile flickered, just slightly. "I was diagnosed with a heart condition 14 years ago," I continued. "It's controlled, managed, but it forces you to think differently about time." Landon's head snapped up. "I didn't share that widely," I said, "because I didn't want sympathy or supervision." Serena laughed again, but it sounded forced now. "What does that have to do with anything?" "It taught me patience," I replied, "and preparation." I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a slim envelope. Nothing dramatic, just paper. "I didn't plan to bring this," I said, "but tonight seems appropriate." Landon stared at it like it might bite. Serena scoffed. "What is that, a lecture?" "It's perspective," I said. I slid the envelope onto the table between us. "I live simply," I continued. "Always have. But I didn't retire because I was tired. I retired because I was ready." Serena opened her mouth to interrupt. "I suggest," I added calmly, "you let me finish." The room was completely silent now. No clinking glasses, no whispers, just attention. "There are things you don't know about my finances," I said, "and there are reasons for that." Serena shook her head, laughing sharply. "If you had real money, we'd know." That confidence again. Bright, careless. I met her eyes. You assume visibility equals value, I said. That's a dangerous habit. Landon finally spoke. Dad, I held up a hand. Just listen. I straightened my jacket and felt the strange calm that comes when a line has already been crossed. I didn't come here to be celebrated, I said. I came because my son asked me to. I looked around the room one last time, but since respect has already left the room, I continued, honesty might as well stay. Serena folded her arms tighter. Then say it. I nodded. All right, I said. I will. And that was the moment I realized just how unprepared she was for what I'd spent years quietly building. I didn't raise my voice. That more than anything else unsettled her. I planned for risk long before tonight, I said calmly. Not just in my work, in my life. Serena rolled her eyes. This is getting embarrassing. It already was, I replied. I'm just choosing to end it. I turned slightly so the room could hear me. Not because I wanted an audience, but because what comes next only works when there are witnesses. I was diagnosed with a heart condition 14 years ago, I repeated slower this time. It's stable, monitored, but it changes how you think about tomorrow. Landon looked like he'd been punched in the chest. Dad, why didn't you tell me? Because I didn't want to be managed, I said gently. Or pitied. I wanted to live normally. Serena scoffed again, but her voice lacked conviction. So what? You've got a doctor, lots of people do. Yes, I said, but not everyone uses that knowledge to plan decades ahead. I picked up the envelope and tapped it once on the table. For years, I continued, I structured my finances the same way I structured my health, conservatively, quietly, with contingencies. A few guests leaned forward without realizing they had. I didn't gamble, I said. I didn't chase trends. I invested in infrastructure, utilities, long-term instruments most people ignore because they aren't exciting. Serena laughed sharply. You're saying you're rich now? I'm saying, I replied, that I'm secure. I slid the envelope toward Landon. Those are summary statements, I said. Not everything, just enough to remove doubt. Landon hesitated before opening it. His hands shook slightly as he unfolded the papers. His eyes widened. Serena stepped closer. What is that? He swallowed. Dad, this shows... I nodded once. She grabbed the papers from his hands and scanned them quickly. Too quickly. Then again, slower. The color drained from her face. That's not possible, she said. You never lived like you had money. That was the point, I replied. Money is loud when it's insecure. Her mouth opened, then closed. I let the silence sit. I didn't talk about it, I continued, because I've seen what money does to families. I've watched respect turn transactional, love turn conditional. Serena looked around the room, suddenly aware of how many eyes were on her. Why wouldn't you tell us? Because the moment you know someone has money, I said, you stop listening to who they are. Landon sank into a chair. I had no idea. He whispered. I believe you, I said. That's why this hurts. Serena's voice cracked. You made me look awful. I shook my head. You did that yourself. I just stopped absorbing it. She took a step back, her heel catching on a chair leg. Someone moved to steady her, but she waved them away. This was supposed to be a party, she muttered. It was, I replied, until you decided to make it a performance. I straightened my jacket and looked at the crooked banner behind me. I'm leaving, I said. I think that's best. Landon stood up. Wait, Dad, please. I'll call you tomorrow, I said calmly. There are things we need to discuss privately. I turned to Serena. This isn't revenge, I said. And it isn't a threat. She stared at me, eyes wide now, confidence gone. It's a correction, I finished. I walked toward the exit. No one stopped me. No one spoke. Outside, the night air was cool and steady. I sat in my car for a long moment before starting the engine, hands resting on the wheel. I hadn't planned to reveal anything that night, but once respect left the room, truth followed naturally. Money doesn't change people. It reveals what they were already willing to say when they thought nothing could push back. I didn't sleep much that night, not because of anger, not even because of embarrassment. Because once something that big is said out loud, your mind starts replaying every moment that led up to it. Every silence, every compromise, every time you chose peace over clarity. Just after sunrise, my phone rang. It was Landon. Dad, he said quietly. Are you okay? I'm fine, I replied. How are you? There was a pause, long enough to answer the question without words. She hasn't stopped talking, he admitted. One minute she's furious, the next she's terrified. She says she didn't know. About the money. About your health. I never accused her of knowing, I said. I accused her of assuming. He sighed. She wants to apologize. That's her decision, I replied, not mine to manage. We agreed to meet later that afternoon at a small cafe near the river. Neutral ground. No family photos, no memories baked into the walls. When I arrived, Landon was already there, hands wrapped around a coffee he hadn't touched. He looked tired in a way I recognized. The tiredness that comes from carrying tension you didn't create. She thinks you're going to cut us off, he said without looking up. I'm not cutting anyone off, I replied. I'm removing confusion. He finally met my eyes. Dad, why didn't you ever tell me about your heart? I didn't deflect. Because I didn't want to become a liability in your mind. Or a project. That landed harder than I expected. I should have been there for you, he said quietly. Yes, I replied. You should have. Rhea arrived a few minutes later. She didn't sit down right away. She hovered, posture stiff, confidence carefully reassembled but thinner now. I'm sorry, she said quickly. About the cake, about what I said. I was angry. I waited. She swallowed. I didn't know you had assets. If I had known. There it is, I said gently. Her mouth closed. I didn't need you to know my net worth, I continued. I needed you to know my boundary. Landon shifted in his chair. Rhea finally sat down, hands clasped tightly. I grew up watching money control everything, she said. Who was respected, who wasn't? I promised myself I'd never be powerless again. I understand fear, I replied. I don't excuse cruelty. She nodded, eyes glistening now. What do you want from us? I leaned back slightly. Clarity, distance, and time. Landon frowned. Distance? Yes, I said. I won't be involved in your finances. I won't rescue you, and I won't tolerate being spoken to that way again. Rhea nodded too quickly. Of course. And the trust you saw? I added. They're being revised? Both of them froze. I'm not disinheriting anyone, I said calmly. But access will be structured, for health reasons, and for peace. Rhea's voice trembled. You're punishing us. No, I replied. I'm protecting myself. The conversation ended politely but not warmly. Apologies were offered, accepted, but trust doesn't reset just because voices soften. That evening I met with my estate attorney. We talked through everything. Medical directives, contingencies, decision authority. What happens if I can't speak for myself? Who steps in? Who doesn't? And your daughter-in-law, she asked, pen hovering. Is not to be involved, I said without hesitation. The pen moved. When I returned home, the house felt lighter, quieter, like I'd finally stopped arguing with gravity. My phone buzzed later that night. A message from Rhea. I'm embarrassed. I didn't realize how much I hurt you. I stared at it for a long moment before replying. Embarrassment fades. Patterns repeat. Choose carefully. I set the phone down and looked out the window at the empty street. Turning 60 wasn't about aging. It was about inventory. What you keep, what you release, and who still gets access when silence no longer does the work for them. Distance has a sound. It isn't silence exactly, it's the absence of expectation. The week after the cafe meeting passed without drama. No frantic calls, no apologies dressed up as explanations. Landon sent a short text. Hope you're doing okay. And nothing else. Rhea didn't reach out at all. I noticed the quiet and for once I didn't rush to fill it. At 60, you learn the difference between peace and avoidance. One heals. The other just delays the reckoning. Midweek, I had a follow-up appointment with my cardiologist in Johnson City, Tennessee, where I'd transferred my care after retiring. Routine tests, routine questions. But halfway through, she paused and looked at me over her glasses. You've been carrying stress longer than you realize, she said. Not acute, chronic. I smiled faintly. Family has that effect. It does, she replied, especially when boundaries are unclear. On the drive home, her words stayed with me. Stress isn't always loud. Sometimes it settles in quietly, disguised as responsibility. 2 days later, my attorney called to confirm the trust revisions were finalized, assets reorganized, authority clarified. Medical and financial decisions separated cleanly. No ambiguity, no room for interpretation. And just to be clear, she said, your son remains a beneficiary but without discretionary access during your lifetime. That's correct, I replied. Not punishment, precision. That evening, Landon showed up at my door unannounced. He stood on the porch longer than necessary before knocking like he was bracing himself. I needed to talk, he said. I stepped aside. Come in. He looked around the living room as if seeing it for the first time. Same couch, same framed photos, same quiet order that suddenly felt heavier to him than it ever had to me. She thinks you hate her, he said finally. I don't hate her, I replied. I stopped accommodating her. He exhaled slowly. She thinks this is about money. It's about behavior, I said. Money just removed the illusion. He sat down, elbows on his knees. Things are tight right now. We were hoping you might help us refinance. There it was. I didn't answer immediately. I let the question sit in the room exactly as it was. No, I said calmly. He nodded, disappointment flickering across his face. I figured. I'm not withdrawing love, I added. I'm withdrawing leverage. He swallowed. She won't like that. She doesn't have to, I replied. She has to respect it. We talked for a while after that, not about money, about marriage, about how silence becomes habit, about how quickly people confuse tolerance with approval. When he left, the house felt steady again. The next day, Rhea sent a message. Can we talk? Just the two of us? I stared at it longer than I probably should have. Then I replied, not yet. That wasn't cruelty. It was honesty. I spent the rest of the week doing things I'd postponed for years. Long walks, cooking properly instead of conveniently, sorting through old files I'd never needed to revisit. In one drawer, I found a folder labeled long-term planning, notes I'd written years earlier, before Landon married, before my health became something I managed daily. One line stood out, underlined twice. Leave clarity, not confusion. That night I wrote a letter. Not emotional, not accusatory, just clear. It outlined expectations, boundaries, and what support would look like going forward if respect remained intact. I sealed it and placed it back in the drawer. The humiliation at the party had been loud. What followed was quieter. But quiet doesn't mean weak. Sometimes it means the ground has shifted, and everyone feels it even if no one says a word. I didn't send the letter right away. I wanted to see what happened when I stopped managing everyone else's emotions. Days passed, then a full week. The silence wasn't empty anymore. It was informative. Landon called once, short, careful. He asked about my health, not my finances. That felt intentional. Rhea stayed quiet, which told me more than any apology could have. Then late one evening, a message came through. We're thinking of having a small family dinner, just to reset things. It would mean a lot if you came. No mention of the birthday. No acknowledgement of the words that had been thrown with the cake. Just an invitation wrapped in hope that time alone had fixed things. I didn't reply. The next morning, my attorney called. I wanted you to hear this from me, she said. Your daughter-in-law contacted my office yesterday. I sat down at the kitchen table. What did she want? I asked. She asked whether any of your trust provisions could be adjusted sooner than planned for family stability. There it was, the real urgency. I declined to discuss anything, my attorney added, but I thought you should know. Thank you, I said. That tells me everything. After the call, I took the letter out of the drawer and read it again. It was calm, direct, almost clinical. No blame, no emotion, just structure. That's when I knew it was time. That evening, Landon came by with Rhea. She looked different this time. Not defensive, not performative, just careful. I won't justify what I did, she said after we sat down. I won't say it was stress or a joke or a misunderstanding. I waited. I crossed a line, she continued publicly, and I did it because I thought I was safe to. That sentence mattered. I didn't think there would be consequences, she added quietly. I nodded. Most people don't. I slid the envelope across the table. This is for both of you, I said. Landon opened it first. His eyes moved steadily down the page. Rhea leaned in, reading faster, her expression tightening as she went. Halfway through, she looked up. It means exactly what it says, I replied. No financial dependence, No informal loans, no expectations disguised as family obligation. Support offered only by request, and only when respect remained intact. "You're cutting us off," she said. "I'm cutting out confusion," I corrected. "Those aren't the same thing." Landon looked up. "Is this permanent?" "It's conditional," I said. "On behavior, on consistency, on time." Rhea swallowed. "You don't trust me." I met her eyes. "Trust isn't declared, it's demonstrated." The room stayed quiet after that. Not tense, just settled. "I'll respect this," she said finally. "Even if I don't like it." "That's enough," I replied. They didn't stay long. No arguments, no tears. Just an understanding that something fundamental had shifted. Later that night, alone again, I thought about how easily people confuse access with entitlement, how money amplifies whatever was already there, kindness or contempt. But more than that, I thought about health, about how much energy I'd spent cushioning other people from discomfort while quietly carrying my own. Turning 60 didn't make me fragile. It made me exact. I placed the signed copy of the letter back in the drawer and closed it gently. The party had exposed something. What followed was structure. And structure, unlike emotion, holds its shape over time. The weeks that followed didn't bring drama. They brought alignment. Landon and Rhea adjusted in small, measurable ways. Calls were respectful and infrequent. No hints, no testing. No casual comments about money disguised as jokes. When they visited, they asked instead of assumed. When they left, there was no tension hanging in the doorway. That was new. My health remained steady. Medication in the morning, walks in the afternoon, follow-ups that showed what I already felt. Less strain, fewer spikes, better numbers. My cardiologist smiled more during appointments. "Whatever you changed," she said once, "keep it." I did. One afternoon, Landon came by alone. He didn't sit right away. He stood near the window, hands in his pockets, like he was waiting for permission to speak honestly. "I didn't protect you," he said finally. "And I should have." I nodded. "You see it now." "I do," he said. "I confused keeping peace with doing right." "That's common," I replied. "It's also expensive." He exhaled slowly. "Rhea's learning. Slowly, but she's trying." "I'm not measuring effort," I said. "I'm measuring consistency." He nodded. No argument. A few weeks later, Rhea asked to speak with me alone. This time I agreed. She arrived early, sat straight. No rehearsed confidence, no defensive humor. "I won't justify what I did," she said. "And I won't ask you to forget it." I listened. "I grew up believing money decided who mattered," she continued. "When I thought you didn't have it, I treated you like you didn't." "That's honest," I said. She looked down. "I know trust doesn't reset. I just wanted you to know I understand what I risked losing." I nodded once. "Understanding is the beginning. Whether it lasts is up to you." That was enough. Life settled after that. Not perfectly, but sustainably. Family gatherings returned in small doses, public places first, short visits, clear exits, boundaries honored without commentary. I never mentioned the cake again. I didn't need to. Humiliation fades. Structure lasts. On my porch one evening, watching the light fade into blue, I thought about how close I'd come to carrying shame that wasn't mine. How easily people mistake silence for consent. How dangerous it is to let access replace respect. Turning 60 didn't give me power. It revealed where it already was. Money gave me options. Health gave me urgency. Legacy gave me clarity. And clarity, I've learned, is quieter than anger, but far more permanent. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't threaten. I didn't disappear. I stayed exactly where I was and changed the rules around me. And if you've been listening this far, subscribe to the channel and let me know in the comments what time it is where you're watching from. It helps more than you know.